Some people say it's conspiracy. A lot of people in America are very unhealthy, very obese. Getting people in America to be overweight and healthy and obese is done intentionally. So when it comes to this idea of obesity in America, I feel like it's kind of fascinating because when you see people from other countries, obviously they're a lot thinner on average than people in America. And then I've kind of noticed this trend where when people go from other countries to America, it seems like almost overnight they gain so much weight. Now, a while back, I had kind of a debate with several friends of mine, and we were trying to figure out like exactly why people would gain so much weight in America. And the solution that they offered was that it came down to the food. We have lower quality food, there's lots of chemicals in the food. Overall, I don't disagree. I do think that the quality of our food is poorer. I think there's a lot of chemicals in our food that contribute to us being heavier, to us gaining fat faster, to us being obese. I actually think in America's a weird place where most people in the country are overweight. And I want to say I saw a statistic not too long ago where it's like 60% of Americans are overweight. And out of that 60% of Americans that are overweight, I think about 45%, 43%-ish, something along those lines, are obese. So a lot of people in America are very unhealthy, very obese. You know, some people say it's conspiracy, and they say that getting people in America to be overweight and healthy and obese is done intentionally for the sake of, say, Big Pharma, or for some of these companies to capitalize off of the unhealthiness of Americans. I don't think that's false. I think that's probably spot on. But I want to say the reason why I want to make this video is because I think this whole idea about what makes people obese, what makes people unhealthy, what makes people gain weight in America is misattributed. I think a lot of people will point to the chemicals in the foods we eat, as the primary source of why people are overweight. I think that's a contributor. I don't think that's the primary contributor. I think there's something else that we as Americans do specifically that lead to us being far more overweight and far more obese than other countries. Once I share it with you, you'll be able to kind of implement this into your own life if you're someone who struggles with weight gain. But yeah, so just kind of get to the point. When we were having our discussions, I shared with my friends that I think the true reason why a lot of people are overweight has less to do with the foods we eat and has a lot more to do with the quality of our lifestyles. And this is going to sound very simplistic, and it is, to me, a bit simplistic. But I think a big reason why a lot of Americans are overweight is because we just don't move very much. And I shared this with them, and they kind of looked at me like I was crazy. But when you think about it, this is my take, at least, as someone who's been in bodybuilding and someone who's worked out actively for over a decade at this point, taking kinesiology classes, trained people. I have my own views on how weight gain and weight loss functions, what truly makes someone gain weight or lose weight. From what I've seen, calories in versus calories out is pretty much the fundamental variable that leads people to gain weight or lose weight. And I've seen some people debate this. I've seen people say, well, the quality of the food matters more so than the actual calories in versus calories out. I don't think that's true, and I'll share a story in a minute to kind of demonstrate why I don't think that's true. But the idea behind my theory hit me maybe about last year or so. About a year or so ago, me and my then girlfriend, now wife, we were at Penn State where I went to college, and we just walked around the entire weekend. And I remember when we were walking, it kind of made me realize how much as a college student I used to walk around. Like, you think about it, you wake up in the morning, at least for me, my schedule was usually I'd wake up in the morning at 6 or 7 or whatever, I'd go to the gym, I'd come back home, I'd shower, I'd get ready for class, I'd go to class, my first class was at 8:30, so I had to walk all the way across campus, 45 minutes or so to get to my first class. Then you sit there for about 50 minutes, you get up, you take another 10-minute walk to the next class, for me at least. You sit there for 50 minutes or so. Then what I would do is I'd walk all the way back home, which is like a 45-minute walk. Rest for a few hours, maybe meet some friends on campus. So it's a 30-minute walk to get back to campus. You chill at campus, maybe you have a class, maybe you have another class. You walk around. You know, the entire day is pretty much walking. It's very little sitting and a lot of walking. And I know a lot of people say that when you're younger, you have a high metabolism, and when you're younger, you can just burn foods off. I think this is true, but I think people attribute the high metabolism solely to your youth and solely to your age. And I think in reality what's happening is that when you're younger, you're just moving more. You're in more situations where movement happens more frequently. And then when you're older, you're in situations where movement doesn't happen as frequently. So, when we kind of visited Penn State, I was like, man, I used to move so much compared to now where I don't move nearly as much as I used to. And it's harder now to lose weight and keep the weight off than it was back in college. But when I kind of thought about it, I was like, in college, I had way less healthy habits. Like, I drink more in college than I do now. I would eat horrible food in college compared to what I do now. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was really just a matter of calories in versus calories out. When I was in college, I burned a lot more calories because I moved around a lot more frequently. As an adult, I move around a lot less. So even though I'm eating fewer calories and even though I'm eating better foods, I'm still burning less calories, which means it's a little bit harder for me to lose weight and keep the weight off. Now, if you don't believe me when I say this, just think about your own life right now. If you're watching this, think about your own life. How many hours a day do you spend actually moving in any realistic, any extreme capacity? Some people work out, and if you work out, you're one of the rare few individuals. I think I saw a study where I think only about 5% of Americans work out, 5 to 10% of Americans work out, and out of that 5 to 10% of Americans, only about 2 to 5% of that small group actually know how to work out effectively to make progress. I think I've even seen studies that say it's harder to have a six-pack than it is to be a millionaire because so many more people are working towards making money and working towards becoming a millionaire, but far fewer people work towards their health or work towards getting in better shape, which is fascinating. But I think when it comes down to it, if you think about your own life, maybe you probably don't work out. If you're, if you're the average person in America, you probably don't work out. You probably have a 9 to 5. So you wake up, you probably do very little, you brush your teeth, maybe eat breakfast. You drive to work. Driving is just sitting. You're not moving. You're just sitting in a car. Maybe depending on how far your job is, you drive 15 to 45 minutes. If you live around where I live in the Loudoun County area, you might have to commute to DC. That could be about an hour drive, 45 minutes, hour or so. You're just sitting. When you get to work, you're just sitting for 8 hours. Then you get back in your car. You sit for another 30 minutes to an hour, again, depending on your commute. You come home. Maybe if you have kids, you pick up your kids, maybe. Or you might go out to the bus stop to meet them. It depends. But that's not rigorous activity. You pick up the kids, you come home. Maybe you have some extra events you go to, maybe a networking event depending on your career. Maybe you go to the bar with some friends. None of these things require you to move that much, so you're still not moving very much. You come home maybe, you probably watch TV, probably hang out on the couch, maybe depending on your age, you play video games, and then you go to bed. Now, if that schedule that I just shared with you sounds like your schedule, or if it's very similar to your schedule, what you may have noticed is that most of the day you didn't move. You moved very little. Besides walking to your car, or walking in your job, or the little bit of movement here and there, you didn't do very much. I think at its core, that's exactly what's happening with most people in America. As you get older, you move a lot less, and because you're moving a lot less, you're burning a lot less calories, and because you're burning a lot less calories, you gain weight or you don't lose weight. I think that's really what it comes down to. Now, when it comes to the whole idea of the type of food you eat, when I was in college, I experimented with this. Now, again, some people might say, well, you were younger, so, when you ate certain foods, it might not have affected you as much because you were younger and because young people have a higher metabolism. I don't believe that. I do think that younger people can have higher metabolisms, don't get me wrong. But I think the idea that just because you're young, you have a higher metabolism and you burn food a lot better than older people, I think is a bit, I won't say nonsensical, but I think it's, again, a misattribution thing. I think, obviously you see people who are kids or who are young, who are fat and overweight. Same thing. They're eating more calories than they burn. They probably also, the same guy who's 21, who's overweight, is probably the same guy that does not move very much, which contributes to my point more. But when I was in college, there was a point in my life where I had no money at all. I was super broke, broke even by college kid standards. And I did an experiment because I wanted to get in better shape. I was kind of going through this personal development, self-improvement journey, wanted to get in better shape, and I didn't have much money. But I still knew that, or at least at the time, my theory was that calories in versus calories out mattered more than the quality of the foods you ate. And so what I did is I'd eat Taco Bell and I'd eat McDonald's like for every meal, and ramen. Like that was all I could afford because they're super cheap. But I would track the calories. And I would do that for months and I would still lose weight, and I still had a six-pack towards the end of college. So I share the story because some people will say, well, the calories, the quality of the calories you consume is what matters. To which I would say, it matters more for long-term health, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to just the idea of gaining weight and losing weight, being fat, being skinny, it's the calories that matter the most. If you ate, I saw this recently, some guy did like a study and he just ate Twinkies. And his conclusion was, if you were to eat Twinkies every single day, but you were to eat under your maintenance level, like under your caloric maintenance level, just Twinkies, you would still lose weight. But obviously, if you ate above your caloric maintenance level, you'd gain weight. And I heard that and I was like, I did that exact same experiment in college to myself with McDonald's and Taco Bell and ramen. So the whole reason why I bring all this up is because if you're watching this and you are someone who wants to kind of get in better shape, you're someone who wants to lose weight, don't blame the foods that we have in America as the cause of your obesity or as the cause of your weight gain. What it comes down to is you're just not moving very much. Like really sit there and track how much you move throughout the day. I can almost guarantee you're not moving very much. You're not going on walks. You're not getting in enough exercise per day. It's the daily activity combined with the terrible foods that really makes people gain weight or be obese in America. One more thing I want to share before I close the video out. I mentioned earlier, I've seen a lot of people who come from other countries, and when they get to America, they gain weight really quickly. And when I kind of have my debates with my friends, they would say, well, look at those people. If it's not the foods in America, why are they gaining weight? And my response was, the foods, again, aren't the issue. It's the American culture that's the issue. These people, when they come from other countries, these countries, and this is a little bit of maybe this is a bit of a hot take, I don't know. In the comments, let me know what you think about this. I think other countries don't value work the same way America does. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I actually think that's a great thing. I think other cultures and other countries value society. They value community. They value interactions with their neighbors, breaks, a lot more than America does. I heard that in like Spain and in Italy, and I've heard from my wife in Brazil, it's not uncommon to have multiple days off for a holiday. It's not uncommon that in the middle of the day, people go back home to take siestas, to take like long breaks, to take naps. It's not uncommon that people just don't want to work that much, or people don't take work as seriously. They don't show up at like 6 a.m. and work from 6 a.m. until like 10 p.m. From my understanding, this is more of an American thing. And sure, you can argue that it's good for the economy, that it's good for GDP, all that stuff. But in the grand scheme of like individual health, I think that's the main thing that makes Americans gain weight. Again, I've already said that Americans don't move very much. Imagine you come from a country where you're used to working maybe 6 hours a day, kinda, but the walkability of the area where you live in is high. So you could, in theory, go walk from home to work and then walk from work back home. Maybe when you leave work and you come back home, you have a community, so you go out, you do things, you might go hiking, you might enjoy the nice weather, because maybe where you're from, the weather's hot. A bunch of factors that influence you being more active. Then you come to America where you kind of have to have a car in a lot of cities, not all cities, but a lot of cities. You kind of have to have a car to get around. Or you're using like public transportation, which is still you just sitting in a car effectively. You're not walking as much. You're eating terrible foods with high calories, but because you're not used to tracking calories, because maybe in your country the foods have lesser calories, or you just moved around a lot more, you're not tracking it. Then combined with you being stressed out, working so much, all of these things combined is what leads to you gaining weight so rapidly, at least in this hypothetical scenario. If you were someone who's foreign, someone who's from another country coming into the US. to me, that's what makes people gain the weight. So I don't know. That's kind of just my 2 cents on this. I think in the grand scheme of things, people concern themselves too much with the foods that they eat, as far as like the chemicals in the foods or the calories or the stuff that the food is composed of, when it comes to weight loss and weight gain. And they don't focus enough on personal movement, like just moving more, being more active, counting calories, all that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of my takeaway for this video. I think the overall lesson to kind of get out of this is the obesity epidemic in America has less to do with the foods that we eat. That is a factor, don't get me wrong. But it has more to do with the fact that we just don't move around as a culture that much. And that's why we are overweight and obese. One more thing, I just thought about this before the video closes out. I'd love to look at the top 10 cities in America that are the thinnest. And I'd be curious to see if there's a correlation between walkability and the fitness level. And weather probably plays a role too. Obviously, if it's like nice weather, you're probably more inclined to go outside. And if you're inclined to go outside, you're probably gonna be moving around when you're outside, which means you'll be burning calories, you'll be more active. If it's cold, you're probably gonna stay inside where it's warm, which means you're gonna be a lot more sedentary. But yeah, maybe after this video, I'll do a little bit of research on this, or maybe I'll include like a chart somewhere, down here or up here, I don't know, showing what I found. But I'd be willing to bet that there's a strong correlation between the fitness level, or at least we'll call it the BMI of citizens in towns or cities where the walkability is high and the weather's nice, compared to areas where the walkability is super low and or the weather isn't very great. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. But if you enjoyed this video, if you got something out of it, let me know. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and if you know someone who might be interested in this type of content, share this video with them. And until the next video, looking forward to seeing you. Peace out. Bye.